What made the motion of no confidence in Athol Trollip a tense affair? Did today's proceedings expose the EFF's political weaknesses? And was this motion a sign of the seriousness of the EFF about land expropriation without compensation? And is it possible for the country to hold an early election? What time is it? It's question time. Khotong, Kurula, Muraro, and welcome to the show. My name is Mpotse. Do some analysts believe the motion of no confidence in Nelson Mandela Bay Mayor Athol Trollip was a sign of how the political landscape may change, with parties starting to prepare for the 2019 national elections. Smaller parties are becoming kingmakers, with parties like the Patriotic Alliance a case in point. Policy position is likely to determine the fate of a number of parties. This was evident from the EFF's intended motion against Trollip, which was to show that the party and the DA are miles apart on policy issues, particularly on land and race. On the other hand, Fikile Mbalula's ANC was also caught between a rock and a hard place, having to keep its identity intact while avoiding to antagonize its potential future partners as well. But as you would know, there was no motion of no confidence. We are live, and therefore you can call us 089-110-4210, internationally +27891104210, our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. A reminder that you can also stream us on our Facebook page, SABC News Online, and our YouTube channel, YouTube/SABC Digital News. My guest today, Professor Susan Boyson, just from Wits University, that's the Wits School of Governance, and from our Hatfield studio, Dr. Somadoda Fikile, who's also a political analyst, and indeed a reminder that you can just dial that number 089-110-4210. Tell us what you think. What were your impressions today throughout the day? Let me welcome my esteemed panel. Prof, welcome. Fikile, welcome to the show as well. Perhaps let me start with you, Prof. Boyson. Were you surprised that it didn't happen?
Well, yes and no. Yes, definitely, because there was an unambiguous motion on the table, and it did not go the way the EFF and ANC had anticipated. They had anticipated that with the help, especially with close micro-allies, especially the African Independent Congress with a strong base in the Eastern Cape and sprinkling other places as well, and the Patriotic Front, that they would have that narrow edge to push the motion through. But then it turned out that both those smaller parties in the last days found very profound reasons for not to go with the ANC and the EFF in this motion. Let's forget for a moment the fact that they, in other metros, they are very much still in alliance there with the ANC, which makes one wonder when and whether they're going to switch there. But then, when things seemed to go against them, it was clear in the run-up since yesterday that they were not going to get the majority to push through this motion. Then it seems there were deliberate attempts to collapse proceedings, at least to force the DA speaker of the Bay Metro to adjourn, to postpone indefinitely, etc., which is as good as having a vote against it.
That figure, it was chaotic. I mean, I was asking myself, okay, who is the winner here? Is it the DA who retains the mayoralship? Did the ANC survive an embarrassment? Did the EFF expose its political weakness and perhaps political immaturity here and there? What did you think?
I do think that there are moments when you find that there are multiple players and there are no winners because of the lack of maturity in the system, and also the fragmentation, because from this point onwards you can be guaranteed that when the municipalities go for their budget in July and their policy programs, the kind of frustration that is going to come precisely because you do have a tie in terms of the numbers, which will make it very difficult to pass some of the programs. And it takes just two officials not being present or councillors not being present in the meeting, and you suddenly cannot pass certain things. And that in itself means that there are no winners. Yes, we are in an election season with all its, trickery, but the net losers here are the people who are expecting the municipality and the political leaders to do more.
But that Fikile, do you think the EFF is managing this, I don't know if you want to say alliance, because they say it's not alliance, this relationship well? I mean, you have the same party campaigning vigorously. Yesterday, Julius was there saying, you know what, we are done with Trollip. And then they come to Gauteng. They still have a Herman Mashaba and a Solim Simang, whom they are happy with. And then you ask yourself, is this policy or what is it?
Well, I do think that there is a political context here. EFF knows very well that come 2019, if it is still found to be working closer with the DA without trying to separate itself, it might find some of its opponents from the left attacking it. Hence, they are trying now to distance themselves precisely because what brought them together was what they were against: Jacob Zuma and corruption, or lack of good governance. And with Jacob Zuma out of the picture, with government showing appetite to fight corruption, that particular position now is replaced by realpolitik, where DA and EFF are contesting for the second position of the main opposition party, or even being kingmakers, where they might win some of the provinces if that was a possibility. And that naturally is going to draw them apart. And it is not going to end up in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. It's going to chill their relationship right across. But in Gauteng, Johannesburg, and Tshwane, they might have reduced it into personal chemistries, where personalities are coming in. Of course, the race factor has been raised with Trollip in the Nelson Mandela Bay. But also they realized that the UDM-DA relationship there had virtually collapsed.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the Western Cape. Is it Sicelo?
Babumpo.
Dada?
Nayi besithi ube umuntu oyena ikhalela nje ngiyazi bangabe. Lenathika lapha eBhayi. Into mina bengicebisa nje sisiba lamaqela ngoku azawubetho wena inathika iDA. Into mama mayivele yenzeke yona. Mayivele ibhangiswe la metro. Baseke ngokubheka Vieri sibhekeni ke ngoVieri ku-election kuba ke ngokuMusimayimani sekethetha ngokungathi ngokuyinathika umalima unathika uracist. Not to say about uracist because bekethe umalima uzawuqala from PE dani ke ngokabheke Joburg abheke ke ngokwetshwane. Mina besithi mayivele ibhangiswe ichithwe dani ke ngobaqale ke ngokinto entsha baba. Thank you.
Ivakele, that was well, let me allow Dr. Fikile to respond to that.
Well, I do think that the municipalities are not disbanded and an administrator brought in because of political contestations. It is only when you have maladministration or dysfunctionality. We have not yet reached that point here. It's the political disagreement among the parties which had an arrangement. So provincial MEC would be a lot more reluctant to do that intervention because legally it may not actually favor him And also, it might create a precedent that would have to be repeated elsewhere.
Would you relax now as Athol Trollip? Well, you survived, maybe based on technicality, because, I mean, the motion was not even heard.
I think Athol Trollip is not sleeping easily at night because, you know, Julius Malema also explicitly threatened, yes, they will come for him and he will not see the end of his term. And we know those small parties. They're on today, this week, they are in alliance with the DA. They flip around. Whoever is offering them the best opportunities, the best exposure. Remember, these small parties, in a way, this current weeks is the festival of the small parties, the best election campaign they can ever dream of. They get so much exposure, they are so much in the limelight, and they thrive in that. And as long as they keep on flipping and keep on playing hard to get, they will remain in the limelight and they will be scoring in the run-up to the elections.
Musa, you are in KZN, welcome.
Good evening, Paul. How are you?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
Yes. No, so what I wanted to find out is that if there is a charge, maybe the number of GA or ANC members like equal, is it what exactly happened? Is it possible?
Musa, I'm battling to hear you. Perhaps you could just call us again, or rather we'll get our producers to call you back, and we're taking those calls 089-110-4210. And perhaps what we must do on Monday, maybe why don't we get Julius here? I think he would be able to just explain to us all these relationships. How are they managing and what do they think of what happened today in PE? Maybe that's what we must do for Monday. But for now, we're still taking your call 089-110-4210 only after the break. Please don't go away. Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today, Professor Susan Boysen from Wits School of Governance, and at our Hatfield studio, Dr. Somadi Rafiki, who's a political analyst. And we're taking your calls 089-110-4210. And Jonas, you are in Pretoria. Welcome.
Welcome, Paul. How are you?
You're saying?
Malema racist.
Malema?
Oh, Malema is racist.
Oh, Malema is a racist?
Yeah, he's a racist.
Why?
How can he say they want to remove Athol Trollip because he's a white man?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are racist.
This one is another reason why we should get him on Monday. And yeah, indeed, we will try our best to get Julius here on Monday so that we can talk about this. Is he a racist? And indeed, what happened at this Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, the politics around that. But, you know, Prof, I marveled at how, and this is my conclusion, I thought Fikile Mbalula was relieved to see this motion not go on. You know, despite the politics that, yes, you know, we're not going to field in our own candidate and all that, because I think somehow it was going to be a challenge for the ANC to forward a candidate who would have to get the nod from the EFF.
Yes, and it's at a time the ANC is really struggling to assert this new Ramaphosa, new dawn, etc. kind of identity. It's still struggling to find out which of the factions is really in control. We know the Ramaphosa group is rising in their influence and power, but they are not quite certain of themselves yet. And a few weeks ago, not only did Julius Malema brag that they are actually the engine that drives the ANC, but it seemed quite as if that is indeed the case in the ANC's behavior. And the ANC is trying to find its own feet now. I think it's trying to assert itself more in an autonomous voice on land issues, and it is obviously trying not to dance the tune of the EFF. And had they been together, had they been forced to cooperate in today's vote, it would have been difficult again. It would, so I have little doubt that Fikile Mbalula was very, very relieved there.
Jerry, you are in KZN. Welcome.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks for the call.
I just want the professor to comment on this particular scenario about this whole thing about Trollip and Nelson Mandela Bay. It's just merely a campaigning plot and to gain more popularity. In other words, jump on the gravy train. Because now that the EFF is taking credit for the land issue and the moving of Zuma and all things like that, I would like the professor to comment on that, because I think this is all about the next election.
Okay, thanks very much, Gary. Thanks.
Yes, the EFF certainly has been claiming a lot of credit for it. There's little doubt that some of the credit, a large proportion probably, is due to the EFF and the EFF really having introduced new dynamics in Parliament and new levels of accountability, insisting on that. But it's by far not only been the EFF, it's been all other opposition parties. It has been from within the ANC, from civil society, from the media in South Africa. If it had not been for this broad alliance, another kind of broad church, of forces mobilized against Jacob Zuma, that would not have happened. It, of course, is quite tragic for opposition parties that the ANC itself is getting much of the credit, the bulk of the credit now, for the removal of Jacob Zuma. And the opposition parties much less. And that's where they're struggling now. That's why the EFF is also stepping up land invasion actions, etc., to give itself exactly that profile, as Dr. Fikile had said, to differentiate themselves from the DA. Else they're really going to come short in next year's or this year's, whenever, elections.
Dr. Fikile, our caller here says this is about 2019 elections as well. But I mean, I sit here and I ask myself, how does the behavior that we saw today, how does it influence Cindy, who is in Mondio, who's a voter?
Well, what is happening here is that EFF has brought a new brand of politics of spectacle and pressure. It is more like a pressure group. Some of the people who are frustrated, angry, who are in the margins of society are the constituency that EFF is consciously targeting to say, we won't wait, we will storm Parliament, we'll storm this land and so forth. So that notion of branding yourself as being radical, of pushing the boundary, is precisely what is appealing to some of those in their constituencies. Some people who might have waited 17 years for land reform or for the payment of land which is already allocated to them, or the occupation. And obviously, they are also taking advantage of the current atmosphere where the talk of land redistribution has woken up people who have always been waiting in the list to say, let's do something to be noticeable so that when that land is being redistributed, we are remembered to have reminded our municipalities and authorities that we are ahead in the list.
Sandile, you are in Katlehong. Welcome.
Hi, Mpo. You know, Mpo, my problem is one.
Yep.
It is not about the people now. It's about the political parties, the two political parties, EFF and the ANC. This partnership, they don't focus on the people. They focus on their own parties. We don't benefit anywhere what they're talking about now in Mandela Bay. Because people of Mandela Bay, they get the service. From last year to 2016, people of Mandela Bay, they complain about the service. The poor service was given from the ANC. I'm very, very worried about the EFF and the ANC partnership. Thank you, Mpo.
Thanks very much, Sandy. Well, politics is politics, Prof.
Yes, yes, and the colors change all the time, and the bromances and the fallouts come and go all the time, and it is really going to be a case. It's going to be difficult for the EFF to continue in the metro municipalities, and I think that is where some of the major repercussions are, and the importance of significance of today's events in Nelson Mandela Bay. It can make several of these big metro municipalities where we have these cooperative agreements virtually ungovernable. It will be very difficult for the EFF, even if there are leaders of the DA in Pretoria, in Tshwane and in Johannesburg that they get on along with much better, but you go back and you say no, the land argument that we've used against Athol Trollip does not apply here.
Yeah.
And they could collapse those majorities and working alliances in those municipalities, and that is where ordinary citizens really will have to watch out and keep their parties accountable, because that government can collapse.
Dr. Fikile, I've just learned reliably that the biggest casualty here today could have been the UDM, because they wanted that deputy mayoralship so badly, and they were certain that they were going to get it if Athol Trollip was out, and voila, it didn't happen.
Well, I do think that UDM numerically is not a major player, but in these coalitions, smaller parties tend to gain a lion's share, and they tend to be able to influence in a disproportionate manner. They might have been looking for that, but more of a revenge match between the former deputy mayor and Athol Trollip, to say, if you don't work with us, the way you treated our man, it's how we're going to retaliate by working with the other parties. Those personality politics and grudges at times have shown us how far political parties can go. It's no secret that, for example, between Jacob Zuma and Julius Malema, it had gone beyond just the question of ideologies and their differences.
Yes.
It was a sense of betrayal, and it was a sense of bitterness between the two.
Yes. And I mean, Professor Poison, what we are going to see now, obviously, is you have relations that have been damaged. The DA, I listened to Musi Maimane, and I could hear that he feels that they've been betrayed by the EFF, and therefore I guess my guess is as good as yours as to what is going to happen in the other areas where they cooperate.
Yes, yes, it's going to be coming under more and more pressure, and that's why I fear that some of the municipal governments could come under severe stress. And yeah, and putting on an administration, that is definitely not an answer. And we know even in many cases where municipalities are put under administration, that the municipal governments, that is very hard for it really to recover again. And in the run up now, back to the political party, the election campaigns, it is having a field day, and it is the survival of those small parties like the UDM, like COPE, and not to talk of the Patriotic Alliance.
Yes.
They are actually the big winners in today. ANC apparently is offering them the mayorship of Nelson Mandela Bay, and the DA prepared to reinstate the deputy mayorship and make it available to them. So they have become the big winners here. But watch the space, which open letter they're going to write in 2 or 3 months' time to whichever party. They do very good at doing that.
Okay. Well, we have run out of time for today. A big thank you to my guest. And like I said, Monday, we promise we must get Julius Malema here on the show. We need some clarity from the EFF Commander-in-Chief. So look out for the show on Monday. And a big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Hi, Bachot.